Okay, so we are going to talk about methods in this video. This is week 9, program number 1. So dealing with methods. So a method is basically a block of code that is called or executed only when it is called. So it's basically your program is going to be divided up into many individual methods. So far we've been programming everything just in the main method. We're going to start dividing up our programs into different methods and then calling them from the main. So what I mean by this, if you look at a little example, so far everything we've been typing is just in this thing that you probably identify where it says static void main and then string arguments. So that main has been the method that we've been using so far. We've been putting all of our code in there. That main method gets called automatically. Any other method that we make, we can create, but we need to call it ourselves. So we're going to show you what we mean by that. So if you look at the screen here, you'll see we have the main method. And then we created a second method, which is called method 1. And you'll look in the main down there, you can see method 1 with the brackets after it. That is basically a call to this other method that we've created. So in other languages, we would call this creating subroutines that are being called out of the main routine. There's lots of different terminology here. In C#, we call these methods. So just as an example of kind of what this all means. So if you think of it as you have your main block of code here, then you are going to have a couple different, some different colors here. You might have a method here, another method, and another method. Maybe this has like 3 separate methods you're going to use. So what we'll have in our program is we'll have all of our code here, and then all of a sudden we'll have a call to this first method down here. So we'll actually call this. So what happens with our code is that we actually jump down to here, execute this code, and then we jump back up to our main program and we carry on. And then we're going to jump down to this one. When this one gets called, we'll execute the code that's down here, and then we'll jump back up to wherever we left from. We'll execute some more code, and then we jump down to this guy down here, execute this code, then we would jump back up to here. So it's basically like it's just a different way to organize our code. Now the advantage of this is that maybe this method in the green here, that's something you call very often, like it's a function you're going to use over and over again. You could simply just write this in your main program all the time, but why not just write it once and then call it every time you want to use it if you're just using that chunk of code over and over again, instead of writing it 10 times for the 10 times you're going to use it. Just write it once and just call that routine or call that method when you want to use it. Okay? So as we get more and more into this, you'll see that yes, this is definitely the way to program in when you start doing larger programs. So let's get into this. This is a little bit of an example here, but let's get into an actual program. We're going to do basically this program number 1. I'm going to do mine a little bit differently than is shown here. So let's get into that. So if we look at this program here, I have this all written out. So what this program is going to do, this is basically program 1 from the PowerPoint. But basically we're asking for a number, we're turning that into a double, we're asking for a second number, turning that into a double, and then we're going to find the larger of those two numbers and print it to the screen. So this is one way to do it here. This is putting everything right underneath the main method. Okay, so get your data. Don't worry about this, we're just having this as a comment for now. And then set up a double called max. Make that equal to number 1. If number 2 is greater than the max, then we're going to overwrite max with number 2. And then we're going to print out the max is whatever our current max value is. And then that's our program. So let's watch this run. I could say enter a number, a 4 and an 8. The max is 8. Okay, so that is executing this program like it is stated here. So another way I could do this, I can get rid of this code right here. I'm going to get rid of this by if I do that, so slash star and then star slash, that basically turns in everything in between it into a comment. See how that all turned green? So that is now a comment instead. Okay, and I'm going to remove those comment lines. So now I have this valid here. Let me pop this open. And I now have this thing here active. So this is a method that I have written. So this code, you'll see, is basically exactly the same as this code, except I've basically taken this and put it in its own method. I'll just delete this to make it easier. So now you can see once I enter my numbers in here, this is now a call to a method. Print max is the name of my method. So I have another method separate down here where it says static void print max. So this static void indicates that it is a separate method. And then I've got all my code that's going to execute in that method right here. So the way that this works, the way I get data to that method, I am basically going to say I'm passing 2 variables to this method. So I am saying I'm going to pass variable number 1 and number 2 are going to that method. So those 2 pieces of information I'm going to send out to the method. They are going to be picked up within the method in the same order they come in. So I define here, I'm looking for a double and a second double. So 2 variables that I'm expecting this to be given. The first one that comes in, whatever that data comes in as, I'm going to rename it as a variable called N1. Okay, so I'm not going to reuse this number 1 variable name. I'm going to take that data and put it into a variable called N1. The second piece of data that I get, I'm going to put that into a double called N2. Now these are the variables I'm going to use within my method. So when I said it looked exactly the same, it's exactly the same except the variable names are different. So you can see now I'm using double max is equal to N1 because that's my variable max I'm using within this method. So N1, and then this is all the same, and then I'm actually writing max is, and then my maximum number, and you can see this code here should execute the exact same as the previous code did. So enter my number, 3 and 5, the max is 5. Go the other way, 5 and 2, the max is 5. Okay, so that is the simple way of setting up a method. Now we're going to do some more complicated stuff with methods going forward, but that is the simple form of this. So if you were using a method that is a function that you're going to use over and over again, like if you're trying to format something or do a conversion that you're going to repeat over and over again, definitely using a method is a very easy way to do it instead of writing out those same lines of code each time you want to do it. Okay, so that is methods. Give that a try. and we'll move on to program number 2.